Hello, bookish friends. My name is Gail, and I am the fiction bookworm. Welcome to my new in November segment. And this month, because I only have 2 new books to share with you, I'm actually going to share one also that was new in October, but that I just read in November. Perfect timing, actually. I think even better timing would be to read it around Christmas time. Or the new year. The first book I want to share with you is called Royal Holiday, and this is the 4th in the series that Jasmine Guillory has written. I actually have not read the 3rd book. I had started it a little bit, and I confess I wasn't really loving it. And I was hoping to read it before I read Royal Holiday, and that just didn't happen. And I finally just decided I wanted to read Royal Holiday because the premise sounded really cute. I love books that are set in other places. And so Royal Holiday is set in England, and with The Crown being available now on Netflix, it seems like the perfect time to read a little bit of romance that is set at a royal property. I don't know if it's a castle. Maybe it's a castle. But anyway, so the Royal Holiday is about sort of a fictionalized what-if kind of story about Maddie's mom, Vivian. So Maddie is the character in the 3rd book, and she's like a fashion consultant or something like that. She helps people find just the right clothes to wear, basically, I think is her job. I haven't read the 3rd book, but that's pretty much the impression I got. And so somehow or other, she is recommended by someone to help the Duchess. I'm not sure if it is, I don't remember what title they give her in the book, if it's the actual real title of, I'm not sure if it is the actual, I don't remember if the book uses the actual real title of the Duchess of Suffolk or not, but I'm guessing that it's kind of meant to, you know, be a model of the real Duchess of Sussex, at least. You know, being an actress, former actress, maybe she would have some California connections, and that is how Maddie was given her name as, you know, a great fashion consultant to help her find just the right outfits and hats to wear for the important Christmas pictures that the royal family has to take. So Maddie is given this short, like 1-week assignment to go to London, pick out these clothes, help dress the Duchess, and then go home, basically. And she decides, well, I'm gonna bring my mom along on this trip, and because my mother doesn't get to travel very often, and we're gonna go and we're going to enjoy staying at this royal residence, and we're going to tour London a little bit. So the book is actually about Vivian, Maddie's mother, and really about how she is enjoying this trip to London. And so pretty quickly after they arrive, her mom is going, I think, on a little walk and meets, or goes, I don't know, she goes down to the kitchens in the royal residence where they're staying. They're staying in a cottage on the royal estate. And they have their own cook, and Maddie's mom goes down to the kitchens to eat breakfast or talk to the cook or something. And in the room is this very handsome black man named Malcolm, who happens to be the Queen's secretary. And so Vivian starts to talk to him, and they kind of strike up a little friendship. And not just a friendship, they strike up a flirtation. It's a very cute flirtation. I loved their story. This book does eventually become sort of open door romance, but I think that's a very small part of the story. And what I just really love their flirtation. It was very cute. They wrote little notes to each other. He took her horseback riding. They decide that after her vacation is over, she's planning to head back to the States on the January 28th. And she's, got vacation time until January 1st. So she's just going to stay all the way through January 1st and then go home so she can spend some extra time with Malcolm. So it was very cute romance. It's an older couple, since this is Maddie's mom, which is always fun, I think, to read in romance, to see that love isn't just for young people. I was just very charmed by Malcolm, I have to say. He was very charming, very wonderful character to get to meet. Vivian and Malcolm both. And I'm going to confess, I've had about a 5-day book hangover after this book, because it was like this sweet little vacation in the UK, and I really just want to be on vacation in the UK. So I loved it. I would rank it probably at about 4.5 stars, I would say. Yeah, 4.5 stars. It was a good book. The next book that I want to share with you is also another romance. But I feel like I read a lot of romances this month, more than usual. But it could just be what came out, or it could just be where I'm at. I'm actually right now struggling to read 2 different books that are more historical fiction and much more serious. And I think with some of the grief and loss I've experienced this fall, I'm having a hard time with it. But light books, romancy books, seem to be a good place for me right now. So here's the next one that I'm going to share. It's called the Bromance Book Club. This was another arc that I got. I thought that the premise sounded interesting. Execution-wise, I didn't feel like it was quite as good as I had hoped. But the plot is there are, so the main 2 characters are, so the main 2 characters are Gavin and Thea. Gavin is a baseball player, and he and his wife Thea got married. I think they had kind of a quick dating relationship, I think, maybe. And she got pregnant, so they sort of moved the relationship a little bit forward faster than they had planned, and got married. And they ran into some pretty serious marital difficulties, serious enough that Thea has decided to file for divorce. And what I liked about the book was it was 2 imperfect people. Gavin being a baseball player on a major league team, I think was a little too caught up in his own career and himself, and wasn't paying as close attention to Thea as he should have been. And Thea, I think, comes from a family where her father left her mother and then has repeatedly been meeting new women, marrying them, divorcing, repeatedly keeps doing this. I don't even remember. In the course of the book, her father is engaged to be married again, and I don't remember like how many wives he's had, but it sounded like this was probably like 5 or 6. Number 5 or 6. So, she has a lot of baggage and a lot of wounds in her own life that come from her father leaving her. And so she's kind of, I think, lived with this expectation that someday Gavin is going to leave her. And so that's really just how she, kind of lives her life. She'd kind of lived her whole marriage, thinking, okay, one day things are going to get bad and he's going to leave. And so they have an argument that has to do with their sex life, and Gavin gets upset and he does storm out the house and leave, and then he moves into the guest bedroom for a little while because he's really upset. And she immediately thinks, okay, the marriage is over, and she starts pursuing that. Gavin, on the other hand, really wants to keep the marriage going, and he's really at a loss to how to do that. So a teammate comes to him and says, hey, we have this bromance book club where we read romance novels, as a manual for how to keep our wives happy. And so he is really skeptical, but decides to do this, so he reads the story. So part of the structure of the book is that as Gavin reads an important chapter in the historical romance novel, we also read that chapter. That I thought was a weakness of the novel, because the historical romance chapters weren't really that good. They were, I mean, like a chapter of a romance novel, and so, you know, they were longish to read, and I didn't really think they added a lot to the story, actually. In some ways, I think took away from a lot of it. So that was, I thought, either the historical romance chapters need to be better, or maybe just not have them in the book. And I think that the men in the Bromance book club were kind of a little annoying for the most part. But I did really enjoy Gavin and Thea's story. I thought it was good to see a couple struggling, rather than, you know, sort of having their little meet cute and falling in love and living happily ever after with maybe one or two challenges along the way. I thought that this idea of a couple that thought they were in their happily ever after, but then discovered, no, actually they weren't, was really good. And I thought too that this was very much an open door kind of story, because sexual issues was really a big issue in their marriage. And I thought that was actually really cool as well. That was sort of a discussion that they needed to have and talk about and work through. So take from that what you will. I would probably, on my scale of liking or disliking the book, rank it about 3 stars. There was a lot I liked about it. There were some things I didn't. I thought it was interesting, a little bit different than your typical romance. So the Bromance Book Club. And that is by Lissa K. Adams. And that came out on November 5th. So that's available for purchase now. The third book that I read for November, that is an arc that I got as a new release, Mercy Road by Anne Howard Creel. And this is a historical fiction, just purely straight historical fiction set in World War I. And it is about women's ambulance and medical corps that fought in the war. And they worked, I think, with the Red Cross and established hospitals. And they tried to help wherever they could, whether it was in the villages in France that were decimated by war, or the soldiers, or whatever. That's what this medical corps did, and risked their lives. And so the main girl in the story, her name is Arlene, and her own family has some tragedy before she heads off to war. Her father dies in a house fire. And basically the family lost everything. They didn't have any insurance. The whole house burned, and not only that, but pretty much all of the cash that her father had in the bank, he had taken out and had in the house to get ready to buy a new horse for the family stud farm in Kentucky. And so they really lost everything. They lost all of their savings. They lost the whole house. All they had left was the barn and the horses. And so she's going to try to get a job to help support her family. Her brother is still in high school, and she needs some way to help support her mother and her brother. And so she decides to look for a job, and she has trouble finding one. And so she sees at the recruiting office they're looking for women ambulance drivers, and she knows how to drive a car. You know, this is in the early 1900s, so it would be unusual for a woman to be able to drive a car. So she's unique in that sense. So they recruit her, and they teach her how to do repairs on the vehicle so that she'll be ready for any kind of mechanical emergency that will arise as she's going out to the front to rescue soldiers. And then they send her to France with the other women. And so part of her going is that if she manages to stay in for a year, she'll get a bonus, and she wants to use that bonus to build a new house for her mom. So she's trying really hard to stick the year out, even though the conditions are very difficult. There's a number of things that happen in the story that kind of develop a little sort of mystery suspense theme with this officer who is not a good guy. And then she also meets another soldier who is someone from back home that she knew. And so that adds, there's also a little bit of a romance element. So it's historical, it's got some mystery, it's got some romance. And it's really interesting. It was a nice story. The pace was good. The characters were great. There's sort of one little thing that happens that's a little bit surprising, and it's very well handled, I thought. And so overall, I would just rank it very highly. I would rank it a 4. I didn't love the book, but it was very good. It kept my attention. I kept wanting to keep reading it, so that was really good. It wasn't one where I kind of got stuck halfway through and didn't want to finish it. I really enjoyed it. So this is Mercy Road by Anne Howard Creel, and that just came out on November 19th, last week. So those are the 3 new books for November that I read, and I hope that maybe you will read some of them too and enjoy them. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoy reading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and be sure to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.